Hello and welcome to Access Chat. Today I'm delighted to welcome Abdullah Jibreal, who is an inclusive design and accessibility consultant with Al Kamam Consultants in Saudi Arabia. It's great to have you with us. We first met in Geneva at the ILO a couple of years back. Really keen to hear about what you're doing, how you got into the field, and then talk a bit more about the work that's going on accessibility in KSA, because I know there's a lot going on and a lot of people don't hear about it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Neil and Antonio, for hosting me today at X Chat. I'm a really big fan of what you guys are doing here. It's amazing how the discussion about accessibility is accelerating, and I love being part of this. Well, actually, I graduated from a design school, and I have a background in general in art direction and creative direction. And from there, I started to learn more about the inclusive design world and how, as designers and creators, can expand the influence and benefit of what they're creating, whether it's buildings or spaces or, any visual arts or systems. At the end of the day, it's reachable for all of us. And such mission and a vision in anyone's life would definitely enrich their experiences. And I was really passionate about that. And from there, I started to more work closely about inclusive design. I've joined the company Qadroon Business Disability Network, where they've been working closely about inclusion of people with disabilities in the workforce. And from there, I started to specialize more in the digital inclusion and built environment inclusion. And since around 2013, I started to get more certifications about that. I have a certification in disability management and also as a CPACC, which is a certified professional in accessibility from IAAP. And also I'm representing G3 ICT entity as a representative for Saudi Arabia. And I think being involved in such global platforms is really benefiting the Saudi Arabia itself, and the national transformation initiatives and programs that's been taking place lately around digitalizing government and non-government services for all the people in Saudi Arabia, and also the passion about including people with disabilities has risen, and we believe that we have now real steps and real support to include people with disabilities as both as employees and as customers. And business in general in Saudi Arabia started to also tune in to that mindset and believe in the business case of people with disabilities, although that still are many barriers and challenges, let's say, for us as experts in this field, trying to make this change hand in hand with people committed from different entities. And at the same time, the work has been taking part, whether it's in the educational sector or healthcare, and also other sectors in the economy in general. So that's basically what takes me here. Now I've been working in Al Kamam Consultancy Office. So I've been working closely with one of the leaders in this industry in Saudi Arabia, Dr. Mirva Tashkandi. She's been working for more than 20 years about the field of inclusion. And me and her, we believe that there are really a big opportunity for us to start tapping on the different sectors I mentioned, and trying, join the transformation that's good for the people in general here.
So yeah, that's fantastic. And I know from when I visited KSA a couple of years ago that there's a great opportunity to build an inclusive society, because to a large extent you've got rapid growth and you're building all of this infrastructure now. So it's now or never, to a certain extent, with some of the infrastructure, and we will definitely want to come and talk about, you know, some of the big infrastructure projects you've got underway, like NEOM, maybe a little later. But I also saw that, you know, the airports were accessible. There were signs talking about accessibility throughout buildings and the public spaces. So there is definitely, you know, a broad general awareness and willingness, and yet it's not something that we perceive out of our own little sort of Northern European bubble as happening. So at the same time, because you're not part of the Northern European bubble, there are differences between what's required for Northern European societies and certainly the Anglosphere and the Arab-speaking world. So what have been some of the challenges that you've faced and that accessibility in Saudi has faced, adapting some of the policies and tools that have been established in other parts of the world to really be fit for purpose for the Arabic-speaking world?
Okay, great. Great question, Neil. There is, you know, let's say unique challenges that we're facing, and let me start with me into Saudi Arabia. So basically, I think one of the main major, you know, barriers that we're having here is the lack of codes, unified codes and unified standards. That's helping, you know, organizations, you know, have a clear path on what needed to be as an infrastructure to build a smart city, or, you know, an inclusive service, or an accessibility in general, both physical or digital. So lack of such unified codes and reinforcing them, activating them, you know, holding people or companies or entities accountable for it. And that's where we are looking more towards having more, you know, regulations, you know, where governments enforce entities in a way or another to, you know, be compliant. So such infrastructure, which is really imperative and important for the inclusion of people with disabilities, is really missing MENA version, you know, and still a lot of countries in MENA are, you know, racing towards having, you know, more and more regulations on the way and enforcements, and also changing the mindset where, you know, other countries still did not start the race, or there is a huge lack of, you know, awareness about the inclusion of people with disabilities as part of their human rights. So, you know, there is a lot of variables, and the work is more this way, and you need, you know, to connect more the countries where they need to share best practices, where they need to be supporting each other in such direction. And I think that's what makes us different from, you know, around the world. But at the same time, I think it's an opportunity for, you know, sharing more experience, learning more about how you can actually create a real business case for inclusion of people with disabilities, and reinforce that point where even if the government do not have a strict, you know, regulations about that, you still have the motive and you still have the commitment as an entity to lead on that, and does influence it positively at the end of the day. So basically, these challenges also differ on Saudi Arabia level, or when we zoom into Saudi Arabia, where there is still also a need for, you know, committed or, you know, reinforced of the certain regulations. We had a huge transformation when it comes to the labor law and, you know, the justice system and the human rights system for the people with disabilities. I'm sure that you are aware of the Vision 2030, or you've heard about it. So the vision have been really influential kingdom-wise to change mindsets and start to look at the citizen as a person, and recognizing the differences in these people. and such, it was encouraging for everyone, all the entities here to work towards this vision. And it stated that people with disabilities have the right, like any other person, to have free access to work, to social and healthcare services, and even to work environments. So such vision is leading now the way for it. But to actually that and keep that going, and keep the ball running, where you need to be really connected and unified into building into that momentum.
So you mentioned smart cities. We know that there's quite a good number of initiatives taking place all over the world, and we know some of them they start to engage with different communities to make sure that they don't miss them out from the infrastructure, from what they are building. What can you tell us about what is being done in Saudi Arabia about having conversations with projects, people running projects that relate with smart cities, to make sure that they are aware of the needs of people with disabilities, that the conversation starts at the early phase, instead of later on in time that they have to go and fix something that they built that was not proper to use.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Antonio, for this. Well, I'm really glad that since around 2018, there was a newly established authority called the Authority of Care for People with Disabilities. And that, that authority now is responsible on raising more awareness to such projects in Saudi Arabia. Out of my, work with them, I have been noticing that they've been trying to reach out for such projects, as Neil mentioned, NEOM project. We have also a lot of, under the work projects, mega projects in Saudi Arabia, where they are trying, rebuilding or revamping airports also all over the kingdom and other health institutions. So all of these projects now, the authority is trying now to, reach out for them, to try to encourage them to take into considerations, whether it was the built environment, accessibility, or any other aspects. There are also collaborations with Ministry of Communication, for example. The discussion has been closely taking place around, catering for the people with disabilities on the digital platforms and what it means to be accessible in the digital world. Out of also these initiatives, there is also a work with the Ministry of Health regarding creating barrier-free, digital platforms for, patients with disabilities and the elderly. I can, go on and on. There is a lot of initiatives that is actually tapping on one of the big or mega projects. We hope, however, that these discussions, whether it's still taking place, that are put in real plans and executed also in a good manner, because at the end of the day, our priorities is that to have an actual on-ground usability and change whether for customers or employees with disabilities at the end of the day.
No, government services play an important role. Once again, we've seen accessibility being implemented in many different ways. What can you tell us about how accessibility is being implemented in government services in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, definitely. I can mention a few. First, there is also something called the Digital Transformation Program. It is one of the executive work programs I mentioned national-wise. And this program takes in consideration how they can transform all government services to the digital world and cater for people in general, including the needs of people with disabilities in this process. So we've witnessed a lot of change in the digital services for the Ministry of Justice here in Saudi Arabia. They have been successfully, creating a process to, process legal issues in a very usable, friendly manner. There is also the healthcare, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education. Of course, that's a topic in its own, because after COVID-19, education is still, given in Saudi Arabia via online platforms. So there has been a huge transformation in creating an effective and educational platform for all students. And a lot of the discussions took part about students with disabilities and how we can cater for them. And I've held some seminars. I think the last one was in last month with one of the major universities here in Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. And they hosted me to speak about digital transformation for people with disabilities. What does that mean? What are the standards and what needs to be done while creating digital platforms and catering for students with disabilities during this pandemic? So I'm glad, being asked to attend such seminars, and out of nowhere they contact you, and you immediately know that this topic now gladly became, a priority. And the discussions need to take place, and immediately, such transformations need us also as specialists and consultants, closely observing and, working with these entities, because it is a follow-up process, and it's a growing process, and you need to make sure that is effective all the way.
So before passing to Neil, I would like to know, do you see the conversation on the topic that we are talking here today as a conversation that is also taking place in several media in the Saudi society? No, is this something that people talk about?
I can say that it has been addressed somehow, and maybe in a different, look or angle, because there has been a lot of discussion about, minorities here in Saudi Arabia and people from different, backgrounds, and people, from different abilities or disabilities. They've been speaking about, real life here and what we need to be doing to change our society for the better, and raising awareness about that immediately raises the people with disabilities awareness themselves, and it enabled them to speak up and to create the demand that we are trying to utilize as, whether they're employees or talking about their work environments, or customers talking about the need of having, a proper quality service. So creating this need really helps us back, to show the business case and prove that people with disabilities are actually an important segment that is not only good as a human right to cater for them, but is also making a great business case for it, for the business.
Great. So I know that you've been doing some work with IAAP, as yes. I've been on some of the same meetings as we're looking to look at sort of professionalization. You've talked about a bit about government services, and you've talked about the sort of the fact that COVID has sped up that transformation. We've previously all in various different guises looked at maturity models, and I know that you've worked on maturity modeling in Saudi Arabia. How is that working now, and do you think that it's gained in importance given the rapid speed of transformation that is now happening as a result of this global pandemic, throwing everything up in the air and requiring us to do stuff differently?
Yes, thank you, Neil. Yes, definitely. The maturity model actually was one of the early projects that I've worked on, regarding, creating a system where companies can be, able to create what we say a truly inclusive work environment for people with disabilities. This project actually was translated and launched into 2017. It's one of the Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Human Resources national projects. And this project was basically well adopted by companies here in Saudi Arabia. It was actually launched on different phases. It started with the mega companies in Saudi Arabia, and now today it is also available for the medium and the small size companies. And it was greatly beneficial for us as consultants to have a framework that can, using the maturity model here, to work with the company, starting the conversation about a real actionable plan to start, making the changes for its own employees and customers with disabilities. A lot of companies have joined the certification and obtained it, but I'm really look forward of having much more commitment from different organizations, to take this not only as, a checklist or a certificate that they get, but, but a real way, and let's say a clear plan to start working on its own environments for the best or for the better. So it's called Mu'ama certification. And Mu'ama, since the pandemic, also witnessed some changes, or let's say adaptations to fit the, after the pandemic situation. So the team there was working more on, embedding, the teleworking programs and, the processes now that's been happening for most organizations within its systems and the certification model itself. Also, they took in considerations different work accommodations now that the pandemic is more or less have been, taking certain priorities in that. And safety, healthcare aspects of the maturity model, and all of these, issues that's relevant for the employees with disabilities within the organization, for example. So yes, some changes happen to Mu'ama, and I'm positive that the certification will even spread more if it was, now linked to the safety and considerations for, the company's own employees or your own customers. And I think that will boost it more to become, one of the go-to, or let's say, major certifications that companies should obtain here. So they're committed to it. So yeah, that's more about it. And also, that's where IAAP and also G3 ICT entities are helping me bringing more and advocate more about this here in Saudi Arabia. And I'm always glad because, benchmarking is very important in this process. And while you are, you have the access to the resources and the learnings from other entities that have been, ahead of you in this game, but at the same time, you're trying to take the learning out of that and trying to see how it fits in your own, business culture and your own processes here in Saudi Arabia.
So a quick follow-up on this. So Mu'ama is a one-shot deal, or is it something that you have to recertify over time?
Yes, definitely. It is something that you have to recertify. It's not like a one project thing, and that's what keeps the, the sustainability of the whole thing. And at the same time, it tells the company or the organization accountable if they did not, work on the improvements they should have been working on in the previous year. So it's a good system where you keep in track and you're making sure that you are on the right way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, that's one of the things I like about maturity models, is that they are not these one-shot deals. They're a way of tracking your progress within an organization, and sometimes regression, because reality is that things change and some things improve, some things degrade over time, and businesses and organizations are sort of living things, if you like, and so you have to sort of monitor this and understand. Yes. And look at prioritizing this stuff. So I think they're very valuable tools. When you say that you're benchmarking, I know from work with the Business Disability Forum in the UK that there is anonymous benchmarking goes on. Is the benchmarking anonymous in Mu'ama, or is it public and by sector, because obviously different sectors have different priorities and different challenges.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I have a lot of friends around here. So it's the BDF and G3ICT and IAAP. I think we're all learning from here. And I really like how such organizations are committed to share the know-how and the learning, of course. For Mu'ama, it is like the certification where you need to put up a plan for it. And at the end of the day, it is important for us to think about it as a whole system. So this system should play part, you know, for organizations in a way that is helping them to grow also. So I definitely agree with you on the comment of, you know, having the flexibility and, you know, and the sustainability aspect of the maturity model. Definitely, of course.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and where do you see these the next big thing in accessibility being? I mean, there's so much innovation and potential for innovation in the space because of technology. I know that the MENA region is actually investing heavily in technology to diversify. That's what the Vision 2030 is all about. It's diversifying away from hydrocarbons into technology and tourism and knowledge economy. Where does accessibility fit in that, and where do you see there being opportunities?
Well, you know, Neil, it's everywhere. I can see it in mostly every economical sector here. And even in the areas where we fairly have a lot of, you know, established systems, especially, you know, even accessible system for people with disabilities, but there's a lot of area of development. So we're talking about healthcare, education, you know, entertainment, work, and, you know, any you know, catering for customers with disabilities, you know, all of these segments, whether it's, you know, both in the physical and the digital platform, there's definitely a need to develop on, to grow on. Even now, if we're talking geographically more, you know, the change has been made more towards the major cities, but we still have lots of, you know, smaller cities in the kingdom that also need and, you know, have people with disabilities. So we're talking about rural areas or areas that lack the, you know, what a big city would have as an infrastructure. So still the work, there is a lot of work, and also there is a lot of work on the social mindset still. And I think that will never ever end. At the end of the day, you need to having, you know, such a conversation today is still important to be taking place every now and then, you know, talking about the benefits of inclusion, the impact of inclusion and accessibility is always something that needs to take place upon the table of discussions, whether it's business discussions or project discussions or innovation discussions. So all of these discussions now, it is important to be inclusive in your process of design. It is important to be inclusive in the process of creating your ideas and innovations and, you know, everything that you're talking about. At the end of the day, your ideas must reach for everyone. Everyone must learn, everyone must enjoy, everyone must work. So I think that should be the default, maybe in the future somewhere.
Great. And you know, you've just said you've got so tons of work to do.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do this? So I know you're working with G3ICT and Business Disability Forum and all of this. So is there a large group of accessibility consultants in the MENA region that's hiding somewhere, or are you going to have to grow them? And if you're going to have to acquire these skills, what's the plan to do it?
That's really insightful, Neil. Actually, yes, the discussions have been taking place with, you know, different entities in the MENA region to, you know, have a one entity that is, you know, representing such consultants and experts in this, you know, region. It is important to be unified. It is important for us, you know, to start catering for the Arab world and trying as much as possible make an influence there. So yeah, it's been going on. I hope there is something that I can, you know, talk about maybe at the end of the year or early next year. I'm not sure how this will be launched, but I'm really happy to be on witnessing that. Hopefully, inshallah, I will be there. So, and there's a lot of things to do for us to, to bring this to, again, something to be working on and planning for the next years.
Excellent. Antonio, did you have something?
No, I don't. I think it's, it was something that is very important for us is to share ideas and know what everyone is doing in different parts of the world. So it was great to have you with us today, Aya, and we look forward to follow the conversation on Tuesday on Access Chat.
Yeah, thank you, and of course we need to also thank the people that keep the lights on and the website up and running and our videos captioned. So thank you to Barclays Access, Microlink and MyClearText for continuing to support us. And yes, as Antonio says, we look forward to you joining us on Twitter on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you, Antonio. And also thanks to Debra, though she's not here today, but I'm sure that she's been cheering for me all the way, my good friend.
Absolutely.